Hello and welcome to the Romanian Artcast. This is the fourth episode of the series and the second episode in English. Right now we have a very interesting topic, and I will talk today to a dear friend of mine that I have met in the United States. He has the caricature booth on Mackinac Island where I used to work in the Work and Travel program. He is somebody that has self-published some indie comics, and he is always also a very big fitness fan. Today with me is Jordan Michael Johnson talking about indie comics. Welcome,
Hello.
Jordan. How are
Hello,
you?
thanks for having me.
How are
I'm good.
you?
I'm doing very good, thank you.
Okay, so why don't you share some things about yourself?
Okay.
Like
I'm
where were
a
you
indie
born
co-
and
What's that?
where are you from? Where did you go to school? Stuff like that.
Okay. I'm from Central Michigan. That's also where I attended school for the majority of school anyway. Um, I've been a lifelong artist. I think I transitioned into comics because my father was a big comic book fan, and he was a collector growing up, so it was an easy segue into being a comic book artist. But before that, I drew things like Dragon Ball Z and certain anime, so it was an easy transition.
Okay. Uh, did you have any formal education in the arts?
No education in art. I actually went to school for culinary arts, which is cooking. So
Have you
and
used that degree?
and firefighting. Yeah, I did. I was a chef on the island, a sous chef on the island, Mackinac Island, that is, to be specific, which is the place where I owned the caricature booth. So I was actually a sous chef the first season that I started doing caricatures. I was doing both of them. I was working 16-hour days.
Oh my.
I'd work at the restaurant, and then I'd go to the booth right after until the booth became more lucrative, and then I switched over, and I have not cooked, obviously professionally since.
Okay, tell us how long have you worked at the booth?
I have been involved with the booth for 7 years.
Okay, and let's also mention to the audience that you worked there with our previous guest, Richard,
Correct. Yep, that is correct.
and you guys have known each other for quite a long time.
Yep. Yeah, as previously mentioned, I believe 19 or 20 years. I'd have to do the math, but a long time since we're not even 30 yet.
Okay, okay. Now, let's tell the audience how did you start drawing comics?
So to not be too long-winded, as I said, I was always interested in comics, or I was interested from a very young age. I would say probably right around probably fifth and sixth grade, I became pretty interested in comics specifically. Um, and then I drew a lot until my sophomore year in high school. And then I pretty much stopped drawing entirely. I would sketch on occasion, like in class when I should be paying attention, but pretty rarely would I draw. I put my attention to sports and athletics. And then I kind of moved on with my life until about 2010-ish. And at that time is when I went up and became a chef on the island. My friends were already up there, Rick and Jay. Uh, Richard was working for a hotel and Jay was working for the bike shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what got me up there. I was walking by that booth before anyone was there, and when the previous owner owned it, and I had a conversation with him, and he asked if I was an artist, and I basically lied to him because at the time I really had not even had a sketch pad in probably 3 or 4 years at this point. And I told him yes, and then he said to send him some samples of some caricatures, which I had never done at the time. So I bought a sketchbook for the first time in a lot of years, and did some terrible caricatures of a few celebrities, and I sent him in. But he was so desperate for an artist, he ended up hiring me anyways. He hired me to co-work the booth with a man named Gabe, and Gabe is also responsible for a lot of where I'm at today with art and being inspired and believe. He's like the fundamental reason that I believed that this is something I could do for a living. He was very encouraging of that. So I started doing the caricatures, Um, although I was awful at it at the beginning there, but started doing the caricatures, and then Jay and Rick were drawing the whole time as well, or throughout this process. When I stopped drawing, they were still drawing, and they were still drawing comics, or at least interested in it. So I believe it was Jay said that he wanted to attend the uh, Chicago Comic Con. So we all like basically worked together and created these portfolios with sample scripts from online, and went to Chicago, with high hopes and terrible portfolios, and that was, I believe, 2010 or 2011. We got we got tragically denied by every person that we talked to, and then for me it was just kind of seeing the Comic Con and being uh, reacclimated to that environment. I was pretty hooked on making that my life was comics.
Hmm. Was there anybody that inspired you, especially? I mean, from the consecrated artists, or maybe a special comic that was in your heart?
Oh yeah, that's a long list. When I was really young, like I said, when my dad was collecting comics, the comic for me that stuck out that I would always redraw was a not very famous one, and it was called Zen, the Intergalactic Ninja.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not good, but I have since actually purchased all the issues of the first two story arcs. I actually own the issues that I held dear to me at one time. But and then Dragon Ball Z was a big inspiration to me as a young man. Although that's not a comic, it was just artistically a big inspiration. As far as people, that's a long list as well. Obviously, those close to me were very inspirational, and I'm very fortuitous to have friends that are also good artists. I'm competitive by nature, but I also just think it's a friendly push. When they are doing well, I also want to do well. So I think we all kind of work well as a circle, or a triangle rather, to inspire one another and make sure that we're
Hmm.
you know
Is there anyone
keeping each other.
anyone you would point to that has helped you especially much?
Yeah, that's a long list too. Like I said, I'm going to name him again, but Gabe was an integral part of the confidence that he was. I would draw like really bad things, and I was 100% aware that they were bad. And again, this is the gentleman that was working with me at the caricature booth, and he was at this time, and he still is now, of course, but at the time, comparatively, he was a much better artist than myself. His caricatures were on a whole different level. Um, he just was way out of my league. But I would draw things, and my friends would be impressed, perhaps. But Gabe was always very impressed, and he was always very impressed with the progress. So when I would draw one thing and then draw another thing, he would always be sure to tell me that this was leaps and bounds ahead of the first thing that I drew, and to keep going. And he was just very encouraging, and gave me the self belief that this is something that I could do, for a living. And then past that inspiration that I do owe to Gabe and forever will. I have a wife. Her name is Lindsay, and she has been very supportive of all aspects of this. I mean, in the beginning of comics, it's financially a nightmare. So she was very supportive in that realm, and she knew that I had, or she felt that I had a talent, and that I was going to make it. So you know, her
Okay,
as well.
good. Are you ready to show us some art?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay,
Is that
you're
up?
yes, you're in full screen now.
Okay. So we're looking at the 7 Days of Death cover, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, this is actually a mock cover I did for the Patreon for 7 Days of Death. This was not in print. This was post print, but yeah, this is a self-titled book. This is the cover for that. This was a lot of fun to work on. I did all the art for the pages that I'm about to show you. That would be pencil, ink, and color. Um, Next on this list is a commission for Jon Snow, just a famous character from the Game of Thrones series that is pretty popular in the world.
Tell us
Uh,
how has your caricature background helped your comics work?
I would say that it's an integral part of how I draw. The emotion. I think the thing that I pride myself on as an artist, because artists rarely pride themselves on anything, is my ability to manipulate the face and give and bring in emotion into the piece, perhaps more so than my peers who have not done caricature work. Um, when you're staring at faces all day, every day for 7 years, and you're dealing with different personalities and and uh, and the like, it really helps you shape, that world. So definitely, and honestly, it's not just the face. The personality with the body is something that inspires me as well. Um, to pull emotion out of the body is pretty important to me. So caricatures has helped me a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about on the 7 days of death.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us what the comic is about?
The comic is about a gentleman named Robert Boyd who, uh, I don't know how if I want to give all of this away. Let's just in case anyone
I mean, the
tries to
gist of it, the elevator pitch, let's say.
Yeah, the elevator pitch of it would be something like if Quentin Tarantino directed uh, something like it's like a Quentin Tarantino moved along horror film, I would say.
Okay.
Um, it's a lumberjack by trade who loses his wife, and he is stuck in purgatory to fight out of it for 7 days. If he succeeds, he is reunited with his wife. If he fails, he is dragged to hell.
Wow. How did you get the idea for this? It seems really, really original.
I appreciate that. It was a lot of months of pushing and pulling and prying and adding and subtracting ideas, and I think the first thing that inspired me was the Robert Williams film. Uh, God eludes me. His wife passes away, and he
Oh
goes
yeah, yeah,
into
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that
yeah,
film.
yeah, yeah,
It's called
that
What Dreams May Come.
what dreams may come, and he goes and
Yes.
rescues you from hell, basically. But so that was the first inspiration behind it, and then past that, it just continued to roll and continue to roll. I feel that I'm at my best when I am able to draw organic shapes. So like when I draw things like skyscrapers and cityscapes and things like that, although I can obviously do it, I feel more at home when I don't need the ruler and I can just kind of get in there and get nasty. And that was also a big inspiration. That's why I brought in, the likes of like demons, and there's a ton of creatures in this comic, but they just really lend well to my style. So it was an easy choice.
Got it. Uh, as we mentioned, this one was self-published. How
Correct.
successful would you rate it?
It was decently successful. The book it has a lot of history. I'll say that. The book is back to my ownership, away from the publication, and publishing indie comics is it's a it's a trip. How about that? There's good and bad, and there's a lot of heads involved, and there's a lot of egos involved, and it is a lot thicker of a process than people perhaps think it is from the outside. So, uh, yeah.
Okay, got it, got it. Let's see some more art.
Okay. So we were at Jon Snow. So here's a Poison Ivy piece,
Mm-hmm.
another commission. This is Cable from the X-Men series, anyway.
Okay.
Um, this is actually page 2. Here's page 1 of a Conan uh, set here. So page 1 again, and then page 2.
You made a
Um,
spin-off, I suppose, of Conan.
Yep, fan art, yeah, basically, yep, just a spin-off, and that was honestly just to put in my portfolio. I hadn't had anything where I did color work as well, and sometimes that's where I shine the most, is when I'm able to bring in the colors. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought it'd be intelligent to bring that into play. I was talking to a Dark Horse editor, and just wanted to give him something to look at, just to think about. This here is obviously Doctor Doom. I did this for, I think the next picture is going to be the Marvel covers, but I did this for a warm up when I got the request to draw a couple of covers for the Marvel guys, I wanted to make sure that I was good and acclimated, and so I was like, okay, I better do a some sort of image here to
Did you
you
go
know.
with 7 Days of Death to any of the big publishing houses?
Did I what? I'm sorry.
Did you present 7 Days of Death to any of the big publishing houses like Dark Horse, Marvel?
Marvel doesn't, uh, as far as I know, Marvel doesn't pick up comics like that. Um, Dark Horse, I believe, does. I'm not sure the pitch process for them. I did not send it to Dark Horse. Basically, how the pitch process worked for that is I sent it to three companies. Out of the three, two of them contacted me almost immediately. I don't think I had the. I don't think the book was in their inbox for more than a couple hours, and I had emails back for the two. The third, of course, was Image, and I did not hear anything back from them, unfortunately. But the other two emailed me back immediately, and then basically it was these two companies kind of fighting over, numbers and all these other things. So, and then I just kind of had to make a decision on where I felt the right place for it to go was, and so that's kind of how it went.
Hmm. And you chose
Yeah.
self-publishing in the end.
No, well, kind of. So 7 Days of Death got picked up by a publication originally. That publication was Devil's Due, and they are who do. They were really big in the early 2000s. They did GI Joe, and they did Family Guy, and they did Transformers, and they did really big titles a few years ago. Now they're more like Image Comics in that they pick up basically self-published work and publish it. So 7 Days of Death was picked up by from Devil's Due, but after some conflict, I ended up pulling the title from the company and then going the self-publishing route.
Hmm. So this is why you stated that it's a big ego thing, publishing comics, right?
Yes, yep. Not only egos, but financially, it's a very it's just a rocky road. It really is a deeper process than I believe the average comic book enthusiast has. I think that they think it's just pitch your comic gets picked up, you make a ton of money, and you live happily ever after. And there's a lot of editors involved. There's depending on the company that you're in, there's a lot of people that will be dipping their hands in the work and how things are ran and how the comics should look and what covers should look like, and so a lot of the creative freedom gets moved around, and like I said, then egos are involved, and then of course money, and there's a lot of working parts to that
Hmm.
process.
What can you tell us about the money, especially if you're like a smaller author? Like,
Yeah. Go ahead.
no, no, no,
Oh,
please.
yeah. So money wise, it really depends on the sales, obviously, but usually uh, with the smaller publications, and I'm not 100% sure with how it is for Image. I've read stories, but I dare not speculate because I personally have not got a book picked up by them yet. But in the smaller publications, for me, it was split down the center. Uh, that was the initial contract, and then I moved over to it being 60/40. But uh, like I said, it's a rocky road because basically the publication was taking money out of that 60/40 split, and they were using it to spend it on whatever they wanted to spend it on, without asking me if that was a route that I wanted to go or if that was a place I wanted to pursue. They would just spend the money, and that money would not inadvertently, it would directly come out of my own money. And since when you sign a comic on for a period of time, you are dedicated and contracted to this comic. So 7 Days of Death was 7 issues, each month, of course. So that binds me up for 7 months. And since I was doing a lot of the art for that book, that's all of my time. I can't take on any commissions. I can't take on any other work. So basically, the comic has to pay for my living expenses for that time. And so when the publication is taking money in a way that I didn't feel that they should have been without talking to me about anything first, that was where the money became an issue. Um, as far as how much money you make, that's pretty easy math. If you can figure out how many copies you're going to sell, and then if you, like I said, it's normally split 50-50, 60-40, somewhere in that vicinity, you can get an idea post print what you're going to make. So if the printing costs $1 and the comic is being sold for $3, there's $2 to be split there. So for every comic, basically, you're getting $1, basically.
Got it. Now, with books, for example, you get an advance before you start writing it.
Okay.
Did that happen to you?
No. Uh, nope. I got no like upfront. You're talking about like an upfront fee or of some sort?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Nope. No. 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 Nothing upfront. Nothing to help move anything along. Uh, I'm just going to be like very real about this process because I think it's important just in case anyone is interested in doing the self-publishing route. Um, uh, that was another issue that we had with the company is I brought on a colorist and who is a pretty well-known colorist that had been coloring for DC and Marvel and IDW, and he was promised that was actually the main reason that I went with the company that I went with was they promised to pay the colorist and the other company did not. So the colorist pay was going to come out of the company's funds, not my own, not anyone else's. They were just going to pay him, which they did not end up doing. So I ended up having to pay the colorist out of my own pocket, which is what was the main reason that I ended up pulling the title. So again, there's a lot of it's a business, and in business, people will take and manipulate any way they can to make an extra dime. And comics absolutely is no
Okay.
different.
We have a question from the chat. Somebody is asking how much did it take to make this illustration and your illustrations in general.
How long does it take?
Yes.
This Doctor Doom here was probably about 4 to 5 hours. I move pretty quick for the industry. I think I'm up in the upper echelon of how quick I can work. But yeah, this is probably 4 or 5 hours.
Oh my. This one image?
Yep.
Wow. How much
Yeah.
would you say a black and white comic page takes you to make?
It depends on how I'm doing them. So this image here was done completely digitally from start to finish. That is much quicker of a process than it is if it's traditionally done, and then I scan it and then bring it in to color digitally. I would say if I do it black and white digitally, it's probably 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, depending, for a comic book page to be inked, and then it's probably another 2 or 3 hours for it to be colored. And then if it's done traditionally, it's probably double that for the time. So it's probably about 4 to 6 hours for the inks, and then I'll scan it, and then it'll be probably another 3 hours to color.
Mm-hmm. So basically a full day's work?
If I do it traditionally, it's a full day's work. Yep.
Okay, got it. Let's see some more artwork.
Oh, yep. This here is Doctor Strange. This was the first one that I got requested from the Marvel gentleman, or actually lady specifically. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And oh,
okay, so this is definitely a detailed illustration. How did you get into contact with Marvel? And how did you end up doing covers for them?
um, let's see. So the first time I ever got in contact with him was, remember previous in the conversation I said I went to Chicago and to the Comic-Con and I was handing out my portfolio.
Mhm.
We ended up doing that every year for we did it all together every year for 3 years, I think. And the third year, there was a Marvel editor there. His name was George Belliard, and he was doing portfolio reviews. I ended up seeing him. I had a Supergirl submission, and he ended up giving me his card and telling me to contact him. I contacted him. I did sample scripts for him, and then I believe he ended up getting canned from the company. So that actually stopped me in my tracks because he was my only contact over there. And then maybe a year or two later, I actually met C.B. Kowalski I was actually introduced to him by another artist, or writer actually, and he liked my stuff and gave me his information. I contacted him. He put me in line with a couple other editors, and then I've honestly been bouncing around editors there for like maybe maybe like 4 years. I've had an editor over there, and so yeah, it's just a lot of time and pressure. And honestly, I'm still knocking on that door with them. I still expect uh, to do full comics and covers and everything for those guys. I think it's timing and pressure really is.
Hmm.
But
Okay, so basically, the third year that you went to the Comic Con with your portfolio was the first year that you got a contract, right?
no, no contract. No, it was the first year that I got accepted by a big publication. You know, and the other guys had some success before I did with a. Uh, Honestly, I don't remember the name of the. It was like a talent agency. Basically, they place you in spots. But Jay and Rick ended up getting a card from one of those guys. I think a year prior to that, and we had gotten some success with indie publications and lower publications prior to that. So we had small stepping stones, a little bit of success over the course. But that was my first like awe moment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see another one.
That was honestly just a fun piece, and it was the moment that Wonder Woman steps into the city.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this was Goku. This was actually when I first started warming up with the colors and getting, just getting used to coloring my own work a little bit more. So this was just a test piece, and like I told you before, I love Dragon Ball Z deeply, so it's always a go-to thing for me. Uh, Another just fun piece just to work on color. A lot of these are like color studies. I mean, this right here, actually, this Dragon Ball Z one, this was done traditionally, scanned and then colored. Um, so that was a little bit of a different process than the other ones because the other ones were done completely digitally. Uh,
Now your colors are very, very strong. Where'd you get that influence?
um,
Saturated, maybe is the better
Very,
word.
yeah, very saturated. Yeah, very, yeah. It's been a process, to be honest with you, but it's been just a road of trial and error for me, and I think at the end of the day, for me, um, I mean, you're an artist, you understand this. The more you learn, it's almost like the less you use. But when it comes to art, the better you get, and then maybe perhaps the less. Muscly you'll make your guys, and the less stiff they become, the less this. So it's like kind of like a less is more type of deal. But so you learn all these rules, and you learn all these rules to just break them, really. Or that's how I look at it, anyways. I'm not a realistic artist. I'm more of a cartoonist in a sense. So I like to like push the boundaries and still make things believable. So just like my art itself, which obviously the proportions of this Hulk are very skewed, I like to take the rules and then I just kind of like to shit on them. Yeah, so with things like colors, you learn all these rules, and for so many years I've been learning all these rules and how to do things properly and to make sure things are like, to the code. And then, I finally am at a point in my life where I just kind of say F the rules, and I'm just gonna go from my heart now. And so when I'm doing these pictures, I crank loud music. Sometimes I'll drink a beer, whatever it is that's going to get me inspired, and I just vibe out while I'm doing it, and I just kind of let the colors just kind of go across the canvas. I don't really worry about the rules. So something about that just makes them be very vibrant and colorful. I like to use a lot of like vibrant purples and pinks and reds, and I like contrasting colors. So that's
Mm-hmm.
just the route I go.
Okay, do you use color theory when you do color work?
I think I don't do it. I don't use color theory consciously. I believe I do use it subconsciously because, like I said, I know color theory well and I've learned it for a lot of years. So I think it's just kind of burned in. But I do not jump in and say that's actually the opposite of what I do. I actually try to avoid that completely. That being a rule, one of the good rules of art and color. I just go by feeling, so these pictures will change a lot. I do a lot of like different renditions, and I do like some revision work on them, and it's a process, but I try to ignore all of those like rules and theories, and I like to just work on the piece until the piece looks good to me, and once it looks good to me, it's done.
Okay, cool. Let's see another
Yeah.
piece.
This is just pencil work. This is Mai from a video game Overwatch. Um, just like anything else, I just like to push it, man. I just like to see what I can do and can't do in different mediums, and I don't do a ton of pencil work. And the main reason I don't do a ton of it is because it takes a long, long time, um, or just a lot longer than just jumping in with inks do traditionally or digital work. And I obviously charge the same price. So honestly, that's just a personal preference. But I do. This is my roots are in pencil work, so I like to go back and make sure that I can still render well, and it's still a place that I can call home. So
Would
that's
you
really
say
all
would
this
you
is.
say you prefer black and white work or color work?
Um, I think it just kind of depends on the mood. I think I, and I don't know, but as my own fan, which I'm not,
Okay.
as my own fan, I would say my work is probably best when I color it as well. It's more eye catching, but that's really up to the actual fans. I really don't know. For me to do it, it depends on my mood.
Well, let me say people in the chat are impressed with your work right now. I believe
For
that
sure.
your black and white work surely has a certain elegance to it. That's quite distinct from what you do in your color work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Uh, yep. And this here is a Spider-Man piece. This again was brought to me by Marvel for a cover work, and yeah, this is just another one of those examples of
Yeah, I get a very Japanese stamps feeling from this one, if you know what I mean.
yeah, absolutely. Yep, that's been a big inspiration for me forever, and this piece and the Doctor Strange piece, these pieces mean a lot to me, only because like at this point, when I had gotten, because I have been doing work for Marvel for the editors forever, and no published work, but just tons of samples, and I've been doing that for, like I said, for like 4 years now. And every time they send me an email and ask me for work, I always used to rather get not nervous, but I feel a lot of pressure, and I feel like they were looking for something specific.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would always give them what I thought that they wanted to see, less than what I felt like delivering. And at this time, when I got, which was actually work at the time, I was like, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm just gonna do what got me to the race, and I'm gonna be myself, and I'm gonna color how I want to color, and I'm gonna, I know that the editor probably is gonna email me back and say, you're breaking the rules here. This isn't the color of smoke is not pink. These highlights and lowlights make no sense. Obviously the lighting is correct, but it's an odd lighting.
Uh-huh.
But the picture as an entire composition is, in my opinion, very fun, and it's eye-catching, and which is, in my opinion, the most important thing about a comic book cover is you want people to look down, that stick out, and pick that book up out of intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy that I chose to do my own thing and just kind of not stick it to the man, but just kind of say, this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to draw, and if this is what you want, this is what you're going to get from me. And they actually ended up loving it, both of them. So that was a good piece for me. I was
Yeah,
happy about that.
sure. I mean, your color sense is certainly very intuitive, and I can see that you can do a very nice transition from worms to cools. Uh, would you say that Mike Mignola was a big influence on you?
Uh, I know the answer should be yes, but honestly, he really is not. I love his work. I think he's a unique guy as far as
No, that's all right. I mean, I'm asking just because you seem to be very skilled in using your blacks to convey drama in your piece.
yeah. And I honestly, I've never been like compared to him in any way. But when I'm looking at the Spider-Man piece, I can understand why that would be, that would look like that. Uh, because my images also have a flat to them that his also has. Like he doesn't draw like a Ryan Stegman or like a Jim Lee. He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't move objects in space very much, and I don't either. My images are generally kind of flat, which is just a style preference. So, yeah, I absolutely can see the similarities.
Definitely. Let's look at another one.
That's actually all I had in that portfolio there. That was all 15, but I could pull up some more if you'd like.
Sure, let's see some more.
Okay, let's give me 1 second. Do, 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 do. Oh, golly.
Okay, let me show our viewers what I mean with Mike Mignola's work.
Yeah.
Okay. While you search.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm just gonna pull you over to this here. I think would work.
Okay, so Mike Mignola is known for having this very flat artwork with very strong blacks that create a unique style, let's say. And I've seen that Jordan is very good at using blacks as well. Although I suppose Jordan knows anatomy better than Mike Mignola, although that sounds kind of weird. This is like from The Witcher. Okay, have you managed to pull up?
Yeah, I think so. I think I have some work up there now.
Okay, let's see.
Is it showing on your screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this is a Bulma piece. I'm just going through my DeviantArt at this point, but yeah, this is obviously just black and white. Again, I always just go back to DBZ when I'm needing to get inspired or whatever it is. So yeah, that's a Bulma piece, and I think the couple of the things I'm going to show you was are just going to be black and white pieces. Yeah, here is a Victor Von Doom or a Doctor Doom. This piece was a lot of fun as well. Again, just trying to compositionally make things fun, put people in unique areas, and yeah, just try to have fun with them.
Okay.
That's just a sketch here. I don't have these in line in any way, so this is that is a character from a comic I'm in the middle of working on. This is also that same character. And this is also that same character. The title of the comic is War, and he's obviously seen up here with the little hummingbird. And this is just kind of a promo image for it that I colored up, or I ended up coloring up. It's just the lines for it. This is also that same character.
Okay. Would you mind going to your gallery and maybe picking one or two pieces to...
Sure.
Okay.
I got a ton of them, man.
That Wolverine one, maybe.
Wolverine?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I personally like that one just because it's so exaggerated.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I like to do that, push that stuff a little bit, and this actually was another warm up I was doing when I got contacted by the Marvel guys. I just wanted to kind of get in my zone and feel some stuff out. And, yeah, this is just kind of one of those ones that I moved and pushed, and I was a little nervous about putting more orange in the picture because obviously it doesn't lend itself to a suit, but at the end of the result ended up being pretty nice and subtle, so I did end up liking that.
Okay, cool. Let's see another one.
Let's see. Here's some more like sketchy stuff.
Yeah.
This is
Cross hatching.
A ton of cross hatching. Yeah, I just went nuts on this one. It's so honestly going from these to me is actually weird, and like what I'm I don't know if is the camera still on me? Sorry.
Yes, we can see your face.
Yeah. So and then like I just did this.
One moment.
Yep.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So it's funny to see these, but I just did this Star-Lord last night here, and so I just like to be like a jack of all trades when it comes to this stuff as far as comics are concerned. The Wolverine picture is very exaggerated and very cartoony and fun and dynamic, and then I move on to this picture, which I did in the same time frame, and this one's super cross hatchy, and and more realistic and serious. And you know, I just like to do that. I just like to make sure that I can. It weirdly translates to everything. You know, if you can crosshatch well and you can move and push and pull those blacks, it in some way does help you when you're doing cartoony stuff. It all just kind of blends together and lends itself. So it's weird almost for me to even see this transition because I don't even pay attention to it. But now that I'm just going through my art, this is a very different image than the one we just looked at.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, if you ever went to do oil painting, this cross-hatching background that you have would certainly help you a lot in rendering form realistically.
Yeah, it almost certainly would. Yep.
Okay. Another one?
Yeah, let's see what we got. I'm seeing if I have any. So yeah, here's a slew of some pencil work actually, so we can take a peek at this. Whoops.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is just a Lord Vader pick. These next couple pictures will be pencils. And yeah, again, I did these images for no other reason other than to just utilize pencils. So when I thought about what I was going to draw and how I was going to draw it, I just said to myself, as long as it's fun in the pencil world, then that's what I'm going to want to do. So I just, you know, render and crosshatch, and I just kind of move it along. Again, I just kind of let the pencil in this instance do the work. I don't really like overthink it or anything, and I don't like think about how I'm going to crosshatch or how I'm going to render. I don't think about my picture having to look any one way. I just kind of close my eyes, listen to music, get a vision of what it is I'm going to draw, and then I just kind of get in there and have fun.
Yeah, well, definitely reducing yourself to two tones, black and white, can push you to make some hard decisions, but can lead to very interesting designs.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, it's a big one.
This is a
Doctor Strange.
Yep, another Doctor Strange pencil. Yep, just pushing. I just knew I wanted lighting in the face. So Doctor Strange obviously can manipulate matter and create light and stuff. So I was like, okay, he'll be kind of a fun guy to just work on some lighting with, and again, just have some fun.
Cool.
This is Animal Man, not a crazy famous comic book character, but one of my favorites, and a favorite amongst my friends. So again, just a fun thing to render animals, fun thing to render humans. So I just I jumped on. This is a character from the comic I was just talking about with the gentleman that was standing over, the one that's called War. This is the main villain in that comic book.
Okay. I mean, we got the idea that your work is pretty great, both in color and in black and white. Would you mind sharing your webcam right now, so we can do the interview part?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There we go.
Now tell us about your sources of inspiration.
Aside from my two friends, Rick and Jay, which are both my biggest inspiration, Jay's work is, Jay's a penciler, I would primarily, and his pencil work is very beautiful. I'm biased, but in my opinion, I think Jay renders, and he's in the top echelon of when he renders. When I see his work in person and see how he renders into light, it still is inspiring to me. His lines he spends a lot of time on his pieces, so his lines are very like, I don't want to say like analytical, but very purposeful, and just his hatching out of darkness still to this day is catches me off guard how beautiful it is. And then Rick is inspirational in the opposite side of that, in that he is very cartoony, and he likes to. Rick pulls inspiration from things that are just appealing to the eyes. He's a big fan of Disney and things like that, so he pulls some inspiration from characters from like is it Milk Khan or Milk Call, the old Disney animator. So Rick's work is very inspirational in that it's very unique. So I have a mix of that around me at a constant, which is nice.
There's somebody that there's somebody that is asking you what is your opinion about Kim Jong-gi and Otomo.
Kim Jong-gi is the gentleman who draws freehand, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. He, I think, is a Super Saiyan. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure he's not from Earth. Anyways, he is an amazing artist. He's super inspirational as well, honestly. He is actually one of those guys. There's few artists, and me and my friends just kind of joke about this, but there's certain artists that are really good and inspirational. Then there's artists like him that are just depressing. Like he's so good that there's just no getting to that level like in life. So I think he's amazing, and he's one of those guys that are just so good that he pushes me to be better. But
Yeah. Well, Kim Jong-gi is very well known for doing all this complicated stuff that we can see here freehand and with no reference. So he pretty
Yeah.
much can draw all this perspective. Like, it's not even 3-point perspective, it's more like a fisheye perspective. All without any guidelines. He never uses an eraser. He only uses ink, which is, of course, permanent. And that is why he is so well respected in the artistic community. And the other guy is this one, Otomo, who has a very graphic style, as we can see. And it's, of course, known in the Japanese manga world more. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have not heard of his name off the top of my head, but I'm sure I've seen some of his work.
Okay. Next. Sorry. Okay. What would you say were your difficulties in starting out doing comics?
Backgrounds.
Backgrounds, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my.
I had not. The first year we went to a Comic Con, as I said before, was the first time I had ever in my life drawn a background. So that was a big learning curve for me. Learning perspective, learning distance, and then just how to place a person in its environment was a very, very difficult road because I had never done it.
You know what? When I was in high school, I wanted to go to architecture school, so I pretty much got that part of drawing pretty down early. But the problem, yeah, it's um, but the problem with that is that you get stuck on drawing buildings or mechanical objects more than drawing people. And right now I enjoy drawing people much more. Somebody asks if you like Machie Kuchihara.
I'm not familiar with it. I'd have to see some work. I'm a visual specimen, so I don't know.
Okay, so have you heard of the movie Gods of Egypt?
Yep.
Okay, he did the work for that one, all the concept work, the monsters and
Okay.
stuff. Also for the new Ghost in the Shell.
I love the new Ghost in the Shell.
Okay, so what is your opinion on Machie Kuchihara?
I really liked the design work there. I don't know him in depth, but just strictly judging it off that film, I like this work a lot.
Okay, we have some work right now on screen on Machie, and he is very well known for using different tools to get results, right? So he will use 3D, he will use 2D, he will sketch, he will use photos. He just has no limits in what's to come. And he also was the one that discovered a lot of stuff that is used now in the industry, like how Marvelous Designer can help a 3D workflow. Okay.
Yeah, the art that you're sharing is gorgeous, and this man is obviously master class. He's very good.
He is an amazing draftsman. Okay, let's go back to you. Okay. I think we talked about your sources of inspiration. I think it's pretty cool that you get inspired by people that are around you and not far away on another continent. And yeah, it's pretty cool that you have this support group that I've had the pleasure to meet. Was anything that surprised you when you started out doing 7 days of that?
Let's see here. A couple off the top of my head. One was time management, how time consuming it is. When you're the only person that was I was the only person involved in that project, like with the company. So um, I was the one answering all the questions and doing all the interviews, and I was the one talking to comic book shops, and then also the one doing the art. So it was 60 hours a week of work, and it was like that every week. So the time that it took was a bit of a surprise, and then I would say
Okay. Well,
yeah, I would say
did
that.
you have any things that helped you work 60 hours a week, which is quite a lot.
Yeah, no, I was ambitiously and vigorously pursuing that. So I would be glad to wake up and just get started on something. That is still my my dream is to do everything. My dream is to write and completely illustrate my own comics that sell well enough for me to live my life and tell the stories that I want to tell and how I want to tell them.
That's interesting. Would you say you have experienced burnout in this process of writing the comics?
I honestly don't get burnt out about the process. What burns me out is the industry itself. Like the comic industry is very, 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 very brutal, and I take a lot of hits with my political views, and I take a lot of hits with just my personality is if I'm being honest, it's not the norm in that industry. So I think I take some hits for that, but as long as I'm just being judged on the art, I think I'll be okay.
You know what? I've noticed that, and you were like the only conservative person I've met in my whole stay in Michigan.
Yeah. Well, the thing is there's Michigan is primarily a conservative state. Also, I just want to go on record, and I'm not a conservative,
I mean,
I'm more
okay.
conservative than the average Joe. I'm a libertarian, but either way, um, fiscally conservative. Anyways, but artists themselves are very liberal, which is totally fine. And I would never. When it comes to art, for me, it's just about the art. It's not about the political views, and I could care less what your political views are, or anyone else who's listening to this, or who's in the field. But unfortunately, people don't share that. So if you're openly a libertarian, I did take a lot of hits uh,
Yeah, well, you
for
know
being that.
what? I'm a libertarian as well, and we are, let's say, dying breed in my country.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but I've noticed that we have a question.
Uh,
Uh, she is a beginner, and she would ask for some advice with time management and how she should, yeah, pretty much manage her time and studies.
okay. When it comes to art, I think the best thing that ever helped me with making sure that I could draw the most out of my day was actually my transition into going digital. I bought a tablet, and it was a pretty inexpensive tablet. It was the first like tablet I believe that you could draw on that was also an Android OS, and it was called the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1, and it had like 1024 levels of pressure sensitivity, and then you could download Autodesk Sketchbook Pro on it. Uh, the beauty of this thing was I could do professional level work anywhere I was at, and this thing was, the size of a piece of paper. It's 10 inches, so it was
Mm-hmm.
like 8.5 by 11. It's very similar to that size. Um, so when I purchased that, that was one of the best purchases I made for time management because we have loved ones that want our attention, and sometimes just being on the couch watching a movie with them means a lot. So if your tablet is there and you're drawing as well, that can kind of get you out of some sticky situations that you normally wouldn't be able to work under. Or if you are in class, as long as I'm not condoning not listening to the professor, but as long as you are listening and still sketching on your tablet, that is a way to get you can really squeeze a lot of time out of a tablet like that. Otherwise, I would say bring your sketchbook. If you are traditional, bring your sketchbook with you everywhere you go, and sketching anything. As I mentioned before, the work in cross hatching helps me in the cartooning, and the work in realism helps me in the cartoon world. So if you're just sketching trees or people when you're sitting in the plane or on the train or wherever you're at, any little sketch will help move you along. So that helps with the time management.
Yeah, I can also vouch for Jordan and and Richard and Jaded, they were always sketching. When I was with them, they were always sketching, and they were very passionate about that. Just getting that mileage, I suppose, is the best advice that you can give, right?
Absolutely. Yep. The mileage is a good way to put it.
Okay. Now we talked a little bit about politics, and I get the feeling that politics has infiltrated the comic book industry in the United States, especially with regards to Marvel. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Huh. Uh, I do have a ton of thoughts on that.
I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, I noticed that
It's
you
a
are a bit tense when talking about political stuff.
it's okay. I am, but I think it's just it's a little bit of resentment, and there's a lot of negative that goes along with it. Unfortunately, yes, politics is a lot more important in the arts than, in my opinion, it should be. And I know I can say personally that I have taken a big hit on, you know, what industry professionals want to follow me and interact with me based on strictly my political view. So the moment that I was openly a libertarian was a moment that I condemned myself to not have as many followers or as friends as I wanted, but you really don't want disingenuous followers or friends or fans anyway, so either probably keep your political views to yourself if you don't want that, or just understand that your political views, or I guess just understand that that's part of it. Certain people are not, I don't want to say mature enough, but not ready to deal with things as they are. So people want to take art and make it political, and that's up to them. And I'm just who I am, and if I'm judged on my politics, or if my art is judged on my political views, then
Well,
I really
here's the thing:
can't.
if you're a liberal, I don't think you have to worry about that. And I mean liberal in the American sense, not the European sense.
Correct.
I believe that the liberal view is pretty much the mainstream right now, and the other one is a bit ostracized. How do you think this has affected the entertainment industry in general? Because I can see it also in Hollywood, in movies, in series, since we around the world consume American media just as much as you guys do.
Yes, it is without a question the more popular view in the media, in entertainment. As far as nationwide, it's not. I mean, it's pretty split, but it's really starting to teeter over as the older generations start to pass away, and the older traditions start to leave with them. Conservatism has started going that way, so it's a little bit of an older modality, conservatism specifically, or uh, so yeah, liberalism is definitely the popular way to go about it, and I mean that's a whole conversation for
Okay, but
a whole different time.
let's just talk specifically about pieces of entertainment, intellectual properties, and how do you think it has affected them? For example, I don't know, the Beauty and the Beast, or the all the remakes that are making with the Disney movies.
I mean, I don't know how like cohesive it is. I mean, like directly being involved in politics, but a good example of being like politically correct and making sure that people are um, feeling more comfortable. And I think it's politically driven. Is like the new Fantastic Four. They chose to have Michael Jordan Johnson. Is that that guy's name? The black gentleman who played Johnny Storm. Uh, they they introduced the instead of adding that character to any other character, they chose to make the one black character now the twin, which is just a silly thing. But I think that is like a creative decision that was made not because of creative decisions, but because of political drive. So they had to have a black character in there, which is totally fine. I'm not against it. I just mean instead of it being for creative reasons, it was for political reasons.
Yeah,
So things
and
like that.
if you've seen have you seen the new Beauty and the Beast?
I did, but I didn't retain a lot of it because I wasn't a big fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, we here in Romania aren't as bombarded by this political correctness, and for me it was a big shock to see black people in 18th century France. Just strolling around, just living in a
Yeah.
quiet
Yep.
little town.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, little things like that, just to make sure everything is that you use the right phrase to make sure that everything is politically correct. I see that more than anything. But you see like on there's a very famous video that's going around from a very famous television show where a gentleman named Jeff Daniels makes a speech about why America isn't the greatest country. So like television
Yeah,
shows, and that's a very liberally biased, pushed agenda. So like that stuff happens all the time. As to where we have a show that Tim Allen was the star of, that was a very conservative show that just got pulled off the air for being such a conservative and I guess risque show. So, the, yeah, that side is definitely you definitely see it. That's for sure, and you see it in comics as well. I mean, uh, it's the same industry, inadvertently. It's the entertainment industry, so that industry is very primarily liberal, and people like to fit in. So if that's the consensus, then
yeah.
people will
Now
follow.
we know that Marvel sales have been slipping quite a lot in recent years. Would you say that this can be attributed to their direction towards more social justice comics?
Um, I'm going to say intuitively, because obviously I don't know. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's probably one of the reasons they're hanging on a little bit, because like I just said, especially amongst the youth, it's the popular vote. So they probably go that way for sales. I will say, I don't know. That's hard, man. It's kind of a double-edged sword because the old guys that were comic book fans when they were young and who probably are still the ones who buy the majority of the comics are probably conservatives. So uh, they they perhaps did lose something, but I'm not sure. I really don't know. It's hard to comment when I'm ignorant to the topic. So
Cool. Okay. Let's talk about some upsides you would see for someone to go in this line of work, comics.
um, if you love drawing, you're going to be doing what you love. That's an upside, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's probably the biggest upside. There's a lot of upsides, man. I work from home, which just like everything in life has its pros and cons. But I work from home. I can take breaks throughout the day when I need to. Obviously, I just have to make up that time later in the evening or whenever it is. If my wife comes home and she wants to go to a movie, or if she wants to go bowling, or she wants to go out to eat, I can just drop what I'm doing and go do that. I don't work a 9 to 5, so
Mm-hmm.
that's a big plus. And then um, a lot of people talk about how comics fiscally are not beneficial, but they can be as long as you put in the work. I mean, if you're willing to take the hits and put in the work and grind for a lot of years, comics can be financially a good thing. Depending on how you want to live your life. I mean, if you're trying to be a millionaire, it's probably not the best route, or it's a less, the odds are not in your favor. But there's a lot of good to it.
Okay, and since we are on this point, what would you say are some downsides for someone to go into the comic industry?
Yep. You know what's funny? I'm going to say the same exact thing. So money, because
Okay.
if you're not willing to take the hits and you're not willing to grind it out, if you're not a grinder in life, then comics are going to be terrible for you. I'm a fighter. I still actively coach and train in martial arts. So I've grinded like that for my whole life, and it's very natural for me. But if you don't find the silver lining or find ambition in being broke or in being not the best, or you got to have that willingness to grind it out to find financial success. So if you're not willing to have that grind or be broke or take those hits, it's really bad. You're gonna have a miserable time. So it takes years to be financially stable in that industry, and sometimes a decade. So that, and then also I'm going to say the same thing again, and I'm going to say time. Although you have freedom of time, at the end of the day, your time in your day is still taken up. Is more so in the beginning than once you start rolling. As you said, when you're up on the island with me, you see me draw every single day, and every time you seen us, I was drawing. But when I was on my like come up stage, Not that I'm
Okay.
not now. I was having to play catch up, so I was drawing so much to catch up with my peers. Because obviously, if I'm not even as good as my peers, there's no way I'm going to be good enough to be better than whoever else. Because if it's all judged by the art, then that's how you get your job. So um, you have to literally spend every waking moment, because if you're not, somebody else is, and that somebody else is going to take your job. So uh, as far as time is concerned, in the beginning, you have none of it. I mean, again, you can stop what you're doing to go have dinner, which is nice, but then as soon as you come home, you now are losing an hour of sleep because you went and spent an hour at dinner. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that's probably another pretty bad thing about it. And then, of course, and because I also went to school for personal training and advanced nutrition, and that's a big part of my life. I have to say that comics are not healthy. To sit all day is not a normal thing for us to do. Biomechanically, we're meant to move around and be sporadic and live lives. And so to sit for an extended period of time is not healthy, and living a lethargic lifestyle is not good. So
Yeah,
try to
sure.
balance try try
Sure.
to balance that as much as you can by getting up as often as you can and moving around and stretching and being outside and living a human life. So that's
Let's talk about this too because I know you're very big into fitness and you're also a personal trainer. How has
Mhm.
that contributed to you having a healthy life or maybe content life with what you're doing?
It's a big contributor because I don't have to go anywhere for the answers now. If I'm having neck or back pain or hip pain or displacement, I am able to fix it myself now, which is the most important thing. And by drawing all day, I do have neck pain, I do have back pain, I do have hip pain, and now I'm just able to combat that in a more intelligent way than I was prior. And then helping people also is
Mm-hmm.
nice in that regard. So.
Yeah, I can also vouch that back pain is a big problem, and I've had back pain. This is the reason I bought this chair that you see behind me because
Yep.
it really alleviated my pain, and now I have no problems. But before it was just hell.
Yeah, it can be very, very, very bad.
What
Uh,
sports would you prefer?
I, I also do just like on the same topic. My desk to my left, I bounce back and forth from being a standing desk and a seated desk.
Oh
So I
my,
will,
that's cool.
I'll do standing work. I'll even actually even set my computer up because I do gaming as well, and I'll stand while I game. I'll stand while I draw, and I usually do that month on, month off. So I'll stand for a month, and then I'll just sit down for a month, and I'll stand for a month, and I just think that also helps balance that out. It's just really consistency is your best friend when it comes to that.
So you do a month standing up, a month sitting down.
Yep.
How
Usually.
has that affected you? Have you seen any significant changes?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I should just stand all the time, but I feel I just obviously it's just more comfortable to sit down, and when you're more comfortable and you're not thinking about anything, it's easier to get in that state of flow to start drawing. At the end of the month, when I'm really used to it, it's not it's really nice, but I should just stand all the time because I never have back pain, never have neck pain, never have hip pain, and I'll draw for I don't know 15 minutes, and then I'll go down and do some hamstring stretches while I'm standing there and just snap it back up and go back to drawing. So uh, it's it's probably the better route, honestly.
hmm Let us just mention the fact that if you stand for a long time, you may get cankles. Well,
You may get cankles.
yeah. I mean, if you're a dude, that doesn't really affect you, but if you're a lady, that may be a bit of a downer, just standing all the time. Okay. How old are you right now?
I just turned 29.
Okay. So you've been around for a while. I wanted to ask you this question earlier. What do you think is the biggest positive and negative change in the U.S. You have noticed
Ugh.
since you
The
were born?
the number one thing that since I was born as a negative is the the distance between people. People are separated, and people are um, very hateful towards other individuals that are also Americans. A lot of that is politically driven, but when I was younger, unfortunately, obviously it was an extremely unfortunate act, but when 9/11 happened to us, we were very bound, and we were together, and we were unified, and we loved our neighbor, and we took care of each other, and our political views meant a lot less. In fact, I don't remember them meaning anything at all for a good 5 or 6 years. There was never any, altercations about, just the things that you're seeing now. They were not being seen at all, and this was not that long ago. So now we're just so divided, and there's a lot of hate amongst the groups, and it seems like it's very difficult for Americans to just love their neighbor and respect them and respect their opinions, and it's okay to have a different opinion, and it's okay to be different. It's not so important to fit in, and at the end of the day, in 100 years, we're all going to be dead anyway, so it's better to just love each other and be there for each other. But we're very divided and very hateful, and we're focusing a lot on the negatives now.
Yeah.
And when I was, even 5 years ago, it was not like that. So
yeah.
That's go ahead.
And with regard to the positive change that you can see?
Yeah, and then on the positivity side, I would say, let's see here, the most positive thing.
I mean, you've gone through a crash and a lot of bad stuff, but I suppose you can find something.
Yeah, I'm sure I can. Give me a second here. The best thing I've seen is,
I don't know. I mean, you invented the internet. You connected the world, pretty much.
we are the media focus of the world. That is a really nice thing. Depending, as long as there's no money involved. Um, I mean, I think America is. I mean, no offense, but I think America is the greatest country on earth. So I think there's a lot of good things here. I think every day is a good day, to be here, to be in this country, and I'm very proud to be here. But
Yeah,
as far as
I get it.
we've had a negative side, so it's easier to point out the negative things, unfortunately, for me at this juncture.
You know what? When I was coming to the United States, my relatives would tell me that you have this amazing opinion of the United States, and you'll go there and you'll find out that it's not as you thought. And then I went there, and it was better than I thought. When I went to, yeah, I actually went to the Mandalay Bay Hotel when I was in Las
Nice.
Vegas, and I figured that it would take us at least 50 years to just catch up to what you guys have. I mean, that level of luxury just in a hotel.
Yeah.
Kidding me?
Kidding me? Yeah.
That's
It's
like the level of luxury that we have in palaces and shit.
yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing place, man. I'm glad you came here. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you got to experience it because, like I said, in my opinion, it's a great place to live, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, and I hope to come again. Now, let's talk about some of your preferences with regard to art, culture, entertainment. What is your favorite artistic book?
Artistic book, is that what you said?
Yes.
My favorite artistic book has got to be a comic book, and that's got to be Kingdom Come, which is a Mark Waid and Alex Ross. Originally, it was a 4-part mini graphic novel. Now it's just a graphic novel. Alex Ross is I believe, he might work in acrylics. He's either acrylics or oil. It could be oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his art is out of this world, and that book is probably, in my opinion, the best comic book ever.
Yeah, we have on the screen right now some art from Alex Ross, and I suggest all the people that are watching now to follow him because his art is just amazing. It's out of this world. So Kingdom Come is definitely a good choice. Here's the cover. Would you mind giving a gist, maybe to tease our viewers? Maybe they'll read it too.
I will just say that I will say that the coolest fight scene that I've ever seen in any comic ever, what you're looking on the screen right now and seeing, happens between Shazam or Captain Marvel and Superman, and it is every bit of worth of reading that entire comic just to see that alone. But the rest of the comic is also beautifully illustrated and beautifully written. and I happen to have those four-piece miniseries signed by both Mr. Mark Waid and Alex Ross. How about that?
Okay, good. Now, what is your uh, non-artistic book that you like?
I would say my favorite book would be. Hmm,
I don't know. Maybe fiction, maybe non-fiction, self-help. I haven't really
yeah,
talked about books with you.
yeah. I honestly, I don't read a lot of books. The literature that I read is usually intellectual, so I usually read articles and
Okay,
uh,
let's do this. You read your high school curriculum. What was your favorite book from your curriculum?
I didn't hear the first thing you said. My high school curriculum,
Yes,
probably The Great Gatsby.
The Great Gatsby. Okay, so we have a good answer. Actually,
Yeah.
I read of Mice and Men when I was in the United States. Uh,
Uh-huh.
a colleague of mine recommended it to me. I was pretty impressed. Uh, what is your favorite comic character?
Superman.
Superman. Why?
He to me is a representation of what a hero is. So, and he's also the OG. So no other superhero would even exist without him existing. So, uh, he's the original, and he's what every superhero strives to be. So he's my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, in the beginning, I must say that he was a bit bland, but with time, I think they really developed his character because he is like this god that can destroy the earth at any time, and he
Yeah.
can choose to, or he can choose not to. What would you say
There's
is your? Yeah, please, please.
no, sorry. There's a book from Frank Quietly, and I believe it's Frank Quietly, and I think it's Mark Waid who writes it. You're gonna have to Google it. I forget the writer, but it's called All Star Superman, and it's probably the best like story of why I love him as a character. It's a fantastic book, and it talks about it's like in the life of Superman, all the trials and tribulations he really has to deal with, and how hard it really is. And so yeah, if you want to be a Superman fan, read that book.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's your favorite movie? American movie.
I have three: Shawshank Redemption, Good Will Hunting, and Tombstone.
Okay, there's no comic book movie in there.
Nope.
Wo- would you, if you were to pick one, would there be one?
A comic book movie?
Yes.
My favorite comic book movie is probably either Watchmen or
Mm-hmm.
um, I think the first Avengers was really good. I thought Deadpool was also really good.
Mm-hmm. Let's also mention that Watchmen was a graphic novel, and it's a very good
Yep.
graphic novel. I definitely recommend it to our viewers.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, what would you say your favorite series is? TV series.
TV series?
Yes.
Probably my favorite was probably Breaking Bad when it was still going.
Mm-hmm. Why did you pick Breaking Bad?
Um, I just think it was really well written and really well acted, and the story was intriguing, and it made you like love to hate the main character, and it was just really well done.
Okay, well, we're nearing the end of the interview, and are there any questions you would like to ask me?
Um, I don't think so.
I mean, you get one. Just yeah.
I was gonna say, you said you were hoping to come back over here. Is there any like light at the end of that tunnel? Are you seeing, or is it a possibility anytime soon?
Well, I will say that if you are masterful in your craft, be it artistic, be it scientific, be it technological, or business, you can come to the United States on an O1 visa. And while the visas that are for employment are capped, the ones that are for extraordinary ability are not. And even though you may think that you are not going to get to extraordinary ability, as you age, you get published in books, you may write your own books, you may get published in journals, you may have your own exhibitions and stuff like that. And when you come to the embassy with all that stuff, you may actually get an O1 and come to the United States legally.
Perfect. So that's what you're aiming at that direction then?
Yeah, but that's like a long path.
Is it? Well, best of luck with that, and in the meantime, hopefully something works out for you to where you get to come back on over.
Sure. Now, as a closing remark, let's hear some advice from a young person that would like to get into the comic book industry. If you were to start again, maybe what would you do differently?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say I would take away at the very beginning. I would take away the stuff that I was ambitious to draw and draw the stuff that I know I needed to draw. So I would basically just practice. I would practice hands, feet, backgrounds. I would practice face. I would learn the anatomy, and I would do that. I would not skip those steps, and I think it's very, very important. A lot of people, like if you are envious of an artist who is more cartoony or stylized, that artist, I almost guarantee you, knows the basics like the back of his hand. He knows them as well as the people who present to you those basics in a beautiful way, like an Alex Ross. But he just chose to break those rules and then go a different route. If you envy that person and you just try to mimic that style, you will always lose those basics. And those basics, like a house, if you have a good foundation, you can then build a good structure. So I would learn the basics. I would learn them realistically and properly first. That goes with color theory. That goes with, so if you're going to be doing painting or digital painting, whatever it is, learn the basics, master them, and then move on to finding your own style. Don't worry about finding your own style so much early on. And that was the big problem that I feel that I had, and I'm still playing catch up with it.
Let's give some nuance to that point that you just made. Would you think that a person has to play to their strengths or cover their weaknesses?
Not cover. I think that you need to take your weakness and make it your greatest attribute. And I think in this industry, you just really have to do what other people are not willing to do. Everyone is willing to draw what they want to draw. Everyone is willing to have fun while they're drawing, and everyone is willing to get paid well and all these things. So you have to be the guy in the trenches. You have to be the guy that's willing to do the things that other people are not. And then once you do those things and have those basics mastered, and to where you have no weaknesses, you have a broader spectrum of where you can get hired, how you can get hired, what transitions you can make. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, that was amazing advice, and this was a great interview, which I am very thankful to you for, Jordan. Thanks for coming on the show. Thank you to everybody that watched the show. If you want to keep current with the next live streams, I'll try to do them every week. You can click the subscribe button. I usually try to do them at 8:30 on Sundays, Romanian time. Thank you again to everybody, to the guest. You have all the links in the description that you need, both for Jordan and for me. If you would like to participate to the next edition of the Romanian Artcast, feel free to send me an email. And that's about it. Thank you for a great show. See you next week. Bye.